Hello, everyone. So I wanted to talk about self-forgiveness and something I was thinking about this morning. When I practice the violin, there have been times when I was taught a specific physical stance of, you know, how to play. And then I had another teacher, and they wanted to change that physical stance of what I had learned. And I realized that when I had learned one physical stance, to learn the new one, I first had to go back and fully commonsensically realize what I existed as a physical stance. And then I had to see that like it was a structure within myself and reform that to the new asked for physical stance. And it was a process of first seeing the totality of the habit as a physical stance I had learned, and then go into that and transform it, so to speak, into the new physical stance of myself in, following the directions of a teacher of towards how I was supposed to physically be according to their insight as I played the violin. So I got to the point where I could see this process and know what I had to do. And sometimes I fought it, and sometimes it happened rapidly. And I had realized that it demanded a certain focus for me to be able to do this. And within that, I had to eventually step outside of this and realize, well, wait a minute, I'm just going from one person's image of what my physical stance should be to another, and I really eventually have to figure this out for myself as being totally aware of how I am when I play, and it's like a point of balance. So with it's really easy to see how I would develop habits as a physical stance and remain within them. So also within that context, I could become aware of how I wasn't focusing myself, how I couldn't focus myself at times. And I question that. So in doing the Destiny I process, what's happened as I attempt to walk the process of forgiveness, I realized that in trying to change my habituated, learned physical stance to another physical stance as how I should be in balance when I play, it's as though I gave myself to the structure I had become and changed it. And this was a process of first becoming aware of it, then maintaining and holding it, so to speak, or disallowing the bounce back to the old habituated structure. So in speaking forgiveness and doing forgiveness and realizing what my stance is as energy, I have to, it's like my physical body and me as myself is an instrument that is no different than when I play the violin. And I have to really have to breathe and slow down and sense the totality of myself, where within that I have to see my mind, which means my mind can't be bigger than me as the directive of myself as being life, so to speak, is how I see it at the moment. So our physical bodies are really like instruments. So The other day I was at a meeting and I was very nervous and waiting. I had to wait a long time to go up and speak, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching myself as this complete nervousness, terrified. And so I started, while I was sitting there, writing self-forgiveness, and I was trying to do it really fast. So I really slowed it down and tried to, as I was writing self-forgiveness, thinking of this as giving myself completely to what I was writing so that I could, just as when I had practiced and changed my stance, place myself into the directive of the self-forgiveness I was writing, to get myself in, so to speak, control or allowing of myself to not be divided in nervousness. So my self-forgiveness was to get myself to be directive and not be controlled by nervousness. And there was a point in this process of writing this where I actually suddenly just totally became aware of breath, and everything slowed down. And I saw it so clearly that it's kind of like stayed with me. So it's just like in practicing, when you finally see the structure you have allowed, and from that point you can then start to redirect it, so to speak. So now self-forgiveness, and it's giving yourself to the structure you have allowed, seeing it and correcting it within breath. So actually what's happened now is that um, I have a lot of structural resonances, stances to become aware of. Okay, I'm scratching the back of my neck. I don't know exactly what defense. I'm defending, I'm defending what I am. Anyway, so I just wanted to show that point, that I realize my physical body is just as much an instrument as the violin, and the stances of myself as what I am, many of them, just as in playing the violin, were of directives accepted without seeing the whole. And eventually what has to happen is one has to take the reins of self as an expression of life in one's own hand, so to speak, physically, and clean up these stances, these structures, and see the whole and self-direct as life. And this is a process, and the outcome will be a self-perfected being playing this physical instrument of life, so to speak. I mean, that's where I am right now. So the destiny I process is this, and it's a fascinating and very worthwhile journey. And equal money will enable all of us to step outside of the survival game and learn to play our physical bodies as instruments of life. So join the Destiny I process and support an equal money system. Let's get the instruments of life playing in their full capacity. Thank you.